Welcome to NHL Quick Hits. I'm David Crosby here with Nolan Kangas, and Monday night was a roller coaster of emotions for Canadiens fans. Eric Staal scored the overtime winner in his debut, but Montreal lost Brendan Gallagher to a fractured thumb that will reportedly keep him out for weeks. And then Tuesday morning, the team recalled Caden Primo because Carey Price is reportedly being treated for an undisclosed injury. So, Nolan, Canadian superfan, I'm sure your emotions ran the gamut quite a bit in the last 24 hours. Which of those two injuries concerns you the most?
It's a really tough question. Carey Price, though, I think obviously everybody loves him. Been a tough year for him, right? Like they obviously bring over Jake Allen, and because I think in today's NHL, you kind of need your starter and a good backup to help out to just get that rest. Sort of, I know we're going to discuss the Leafs in a little bit. Sort of what they did, going out and getting Jack Campbell, and look how that situation has turned, right? So I don't think I'm going to go Carey Price, though. I think it's got to be Gallagher. I think he's the wheel that keeps this team moving. Obviously, there's some really good pieces. Josh Anderson's been terrific. Toffoli's been great. Petrie is in the Norris conversation. He's been that good. But I think for him, he does everything so well, and that gritty type of player that a lot of fans and a lot of teams love. So to see him, lose him for a couple of weeks, that is going to hurt quite a bit. Whereas I think in the case of Carey Price, I don't think fans should be too concerned. I think they should be hopeful that maybe a little bit of rest and to get him back to his normal self can maybe help propel this team when it comes to playoff time. Because Jake Allen has been pretty decent so far this season. We haven't really seen any weak games out of him. Usually it's weak games out of the offense, right? He'll do his part, but the team just can't put the puck in the back of the net. So I think the more concerning thing is Gallagher.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Gallagher is one of the more underrated players on that team. I mean, he seems to kind of get overshadowed a little bit right now, but I think it really comes down for Montreal to playoffs. It seems to me like they've got, at the very worst, that 4th spot locked up. I'm sure the whole team in general just has their eyes on the postseason and being 100% healthy. Which brings us to the Leafs. Like you mentioned, Leafs goalie Jack Campbell tied a franchise record with his 9th straight win in a 5-3 victory over Calgary Monday night, joining Felix Potvin, Jacques Plante, and John Ross Roach. Now, if Campbell gets the start, he'll have a chance to break that franchise record if Toronto can beat Montreal on Wednesday night. Now, also, if the North Division standings stay the way they are now, Toronto and Montreal would face off in the first round of the playoffs. I don't think there's a hockey fan out there that wouldn't want to see that matchup. How do you like the Canadiens' chances in a 7-game series against the Leafs?
I'll say it's slim that they have a chance of, beating the Leafs. The Leafs are such a dominant team, and I hate, being the guy that keeps hopping on it because it seems like every Leafs fan in this market keeps saying, oh, they got a chance for the cup. They got a chance for the cup. Me helping out with a little bit of Toronto radio, I was going insane hearing all the takes. But I think they finally figured it out, right? Their defense especially in the series against Edmonton, where they were absolutely fantastic and literally locked up the best player in hockey and arguably a top 5 player in hockey in Leon Draisaitl as well. So I think we've seen them at their best. And now that I think they figured out this goaltending situation, like you mentioned, hearing those debates of, oh, Freddie's the guy. Oh, we got to see Jack Campbell. Guess what? We saw Jack Campbell. He's been terrific. He's bailed out the Leafs in a few games. We know Freddie Anderson has done that occasionally as well, but it's been the same story for the last couple of years is when it gets to the playoffs, he lets in those goals that you just can't let in, right? So I think they have it figured out, whereas Montreal, they still have some games where they struggle with the Senators and they can't seem to get past them, right? So I think there'll be a game or two where Montreal, whether it's Carey Price can just stand on his head or, their offense is rocking and rolling. You get Anderson and Toffoli firing shots on net, and we know Montreal's defense. I'm not going to say they're the best in the NHL, but I think we know Shea Weber at his best and what Petrie has done this year. I think they can hold that Leafs potent offense a little bit in a few games there, but man, the way Austin Matthews has been playing, Mitch Marner, we haven't talked enough about how great he has been to hold them and trying to push past that Leafs team and win that series. I can't see that for this Montreal team. Toronto in the North, they just look too good.
I do think Toronto would be the heavy favorites, but one thing that does kind of worry me is Montreal can play a little bit of that heavier style. You mentioned the guys they have on defense. You mentioned Anderson. I think the addition of Staal is huge, just the experience that he brings being a big playoff performer. I think they're kind of similar to Columbus, the team that Toronto last lost to in the play-in round last year, where if Carey Price can step up, like you said, and have a couple big games, they could maybe play the body a little bit more on the Leafs, a style that Toronto doesn't like to play. And we all know the refs put the whistles away quite a bit in the playoffs. So I'm crossing my fingers for that matchup. Either way, that would be absolutely fantastic for the league. But let's touch back on Toronto here for a second. Following that 5-3 win over the Flames Monday night, the Leafs are on pace for 116 points, which would be their best in franchise history. Things aren't going so well for the team on the other side of that loss, though. Calgary's coaching change has not worked. Jakob Markstrom has not lived up to his big deal at all, and Calgary is surprisingly second last in the North Division. Now, one little bright spot, Mark Giordano became the 5th undrafted defenseman to reach 500 points last night, which he dedicated to his son on his birthday. Nice little touch there. Giordano, I was looking at his cap sheet. He has one more year left at $6.75 million, which to me is not a huge deal for who I would consider probably still a number 2 defenseman. A guy that's been talked about a lot, Gaudreau, has 1 year, 6.75. Sean Monahan, 2 more at 6.35. And of course, Sam Bennett is an RFA. He's been trying to get out of town at every opportunity. Now, I think it might be time to blow it up in Calgary and rebuild around Matthew Tkachuk, Elias Lindholm, and Noah Hanifin as their young core. I think the Flames could get a huge haul if they move those 4 players. Do you think they would command as big of a return as I do?
I'm with you. I think they have to blow it up as well. And when you look at another Canadian team, Ottawa, remember they went to the Eastern Conference Finals. I believe it was a Game 7, back and forth, double OT contest, against the Pittsburgh Penguins. We know how great Erik Karlsson was that year and in that series, but they realized, with the way this team is structured right now, we have to get off some of these contracts before we pay these guys. And look at Ottawa. They stunk it up, but they knew what they were doing. And now they have some promising pieces on that team. And we've seen, a few games against Toronto and against Montreal where they can perform pretty well. And, we mentioned they're really, really young. So down the line, they will be better. Calgary, on the other hand, they have some of the pieces there who they thought would be there for a while and get them to that level. Just hasn't happened. Right? You remember Johnny Hockey a couple of years ago, he was in the Hart, trophy conversation. I thought Calgary was going to make it to the Cup one of those years a few years back, but you're right. They just haven't figured it out. And I think when they see what Ottawa has done, they have some pieces and that could get a big return. It's time to do it. And it's a shame because obviously, crazy hockey town there. They've had some success. I think I'd like to see them hold on to Johnny Hockey maybe for another season or 2, just because we've seen him at his peak and he's really darn good. But you look at the West and it is a beast. And with that current roster right now, the way you're struggling, you got to find the right coach. You got to find the right goaltender. You have your stars who were stars a couple years ago, but are struggling. It is time to move on.
Well, the heat is definitely on in Calgary, one of the more interesting teams to watch heading up to the trade deadline. We're in the heat of the middle of the NHL regular season, but the NFL's next season is just gearing up with their draft just around the corner. Nolan is the host of the Cover 4 podcast, and they've got an exciting contest going on right now. If you're a football fan, here's how you can win an NFL jersey of your choice.
We've teamed up with Lingo Sports. You can find them Lingo Sports on Instagram, and one of the more recent posts is an NFL jersey giveaway. Basically, you got to follow Lingo Sports and then go to their YouTube page, Lingo Sports. Find the Cover 4 podcast. It is our latest mock draft episode. If you comment on that, that gives you a couple more additions and ballots to potentially win this free jersey. It started off slow, David, and I'm sure you were checking out the comments as well. It is up to nearly 200 comments of people trying to win an NFL jersey. And it's not just a basic one, whether it's a Cowboys one or, whether it's a Patrick Mahomes. It's anyone that you want. Right? So even if you are a struggling Jacksonville Jaguars fan, guess what? You can go get that Trevor Lawrence jersey if you win this contest. Make sure to check out Lingo Sports and Cover 4 podcast if you want that free NFL jersey.
Well, I know that I entered and I'm trying to get my hands on another Cowboys jersey, but that's going to do it for today's episode. Make sure you check out the Cover 4 podcast. On behalf of Nolan Kangas, I'm David Crosby, and thanks for tuning in to NHL Quick Hits.